I remember the first waitering job. I was training with this like serious waiter, and he told me that, you better get better waiter shoes than that. And I kind of looked at him like, buddy, I'm going to be here for about a month before I have my own TV show. Okay.
Tom, your dad is an actor.
He is, yeah.
I understand he warned you, in a sense, to stay away from the business, that,
Absolutely,
quote, it would be a terrible
yeah.
life. Did you listen?
Did. Apparently not. I didn't listen. But yeah, he basically said, you never have to encourage people to be in this business, because if they're going to do it, they're going to do it, So he told me all about the pitfalls, and I saw them growing up with him, but I also kind of grew up in theaters and sleeping in the backs of theaters during rehearsals. And so I think it all kind of got in through osmosis, So I ended up coming to it late after college. I was on the athletic path and played hockey in college. So I was kind of going down that road. And then I ended up quitting the hockey team my senior year in college, and I did a play, and the rest is history. Just kind of went from there. Moved to New York after college and started in the theater.
And so with your dad, you saw some struggle. Are there any struggles you're comfortable telling us about?
Yeah, it was always a struggle. He was always sort of a working actor, but, it was always difficult. So I saw that firsthand, and it's like, finances are always hard, and, it's like, moving around. And so, yeah, I saw that it wasn't an easy life when I started going into it. So, yeah.
Do you think working for a company for years, that would also be a difficult life? And some people are not made for that.
You mean not in the business? You mean like outside of it, like an office job?
Right.
Yeah. I think that's got its own, struggles and things, but it's a more stable life, where the next paycheck is coming from and that kind of thing. So I think, people that don't want to be gypsies all their life and be an artist, probably kind of go to that more stable life. But yeah, I think all avenues have their own pitfalls and struggles too. Yeah.
Do you view yourself as a gypsy artist?
I still do. Not as much as when I was in my 20s in New York. I would, bounce around from sublet to sublet and, go do a regional theater production of a play. And I worked with a theater company there, All Seasons Theater Group, where I met a lot of my collaborators and friends that I still work with today. And we used to do, evenings of one-act plays and, shows and readings. And so it was just sort of my, kind of birthed me into the theater world.
What are your thoughts on the balance between having a day job and being an artist?
That is something that I've kind of done every day job there is, I think, in it. I started out waiting tables, and really naive about the business. I remember the first waitering job. I was training with this like serious waiter, and he told me that, you better get better waiter shoes than that. And I kind of looked at him like, buddy, I'm going to be here for about a month before I have my own TV show. Okay. So I didn't quite realize what I was getting into. But yeah, so I've waited tables, I've bartended, I've, done temp work. I was a yoga teacher for a long time. So I think that it's just finding something that can sustain you while you pursue your dreams, pursue your art. But there was a guy in New York who once told me, don't fall in love with your day job. Like if you get like the best bartending gig in New York, you're never going to want to leave it to go to a play or go to auditions or, so you never want to have a great day job, survival job.
So a little bit of pain is good, it sounds like, in the job department.
It's just you don't want to get the most incredible survival job because then you're not going to want to go and leave it. And, you have to be able to drop those jobs in a heartbeat because you might get a play or you might have an opportunity to go do something in the field that you're pursuing. So you want to be able to kind of drop those at a moment's notice.
Yeah, I like that advice. That's
Yeah.
good. What have you learned about making money as an artist?
Not enough. Yeah, I mean, that's always the thing. It's like you want to make your art and make it the way you want to make it, but it is also a business and it's a marketplace, and you have to kind of see where what you do fits into that, because if you're just a total artist and you just don't pay any attention to the business, you'll be making stuff for nobody. So I think you really do have to take the audience into account and see what's out there, see what's selling, and see a way that you can find that balance between being an artist and being marketable and selling your stuff, and seeing what you do well that sells in this business.
Well, a lot of people talk about the term sellout, and
Right.
I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing,
Yeah.
having come from not a lot of money, so I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I know it gets a negative rap. So have you ever gone on an audition or something where you knew this isn't really your shtick, but you know that it might pay the bills?
Sure. I mean, I think, yeah, it's like that old saying of like one for them and one for you, that kind of thing. I think all artists have to do that on some level. Even Brad Pitt is doing that to a certain extent, so it's like finding that balance is what this is all about, I think.
Is that something that's very important to you, also being in the maybe metaphysical yoga community, balance?
Totally. Yeah. And just finding sort of peace in my day-to-day life is something that I really value. So it's like not overscheduling, not, getting in things that are way over my head and stressing me out. And, my wife always jokes that I always try to schedule one thing a day, so I don't have to rush to the next thing, which sometimes obviously you can't do that. But, to a certain extent, scheduling in enough time that I can take my time getting to the next place, so it's not stressed out and running everywhere,
That being said, though, have you changed in the car and,
Sure.
I mean, the whole
Yeah.
actor sort of life?
Yeah, I think definitely when I was younger too. I think that kind of gets old as you have been in this business for a while. So, yeah.
Why do we as creative people squander money? We seem to be reckless with our finances. Or is that a fallacy? We're actually smart with them.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily true of all artists that I know. I think I've known some artists that are really good with money. But I think, it's like that sort of those generalizations do come from some kind of truth. I think that when you're focused on being an artist and living this kind of life, you're obviously not prioritizing making money. So it's sort of that left brain, right brain thing. But I also feel like that's a story that we kind of tell ourselves sometimes, like, oh, I'm an artist, so I have to be a mess with money. But I think that you can change that story. And that's something that I've definitely been working on as an artist, because I want to have more money. I want to have nice things in my life and still be an artist, and I think that is definitely possible.
Sure. There's nothing...
Yeah.
Health insurance is sexy. Yeah, it's very
Exactly.
important.
Right.
So, but there is that sort of vision of like this Bukowski life,
Right.
where
It was sort of romanticized in those times, and then I think we kind of carried on with that.
Sure. And then he found his own success, and
Sure.
I'll clean it up a bit, but I think he said some of the stuff came too late for him.
Right.
I'm paraphrasing,
Yeah.
but and he had met his own success in many ways, and I think monetarily.
It's like that Donovan song, "Season of the Witch." Beatniks are out to make it rich.
Oh
It's like
yeah,
that.
that's
Yeah.
a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
As someone who has voluntarily chosen the artist life, what can you recommend to other artists about finances?
Well, like we're saying, I think you have to find a way to sustain yourself in this life, I mean, if this is the life that you choose, it's like the Letters to a Young Poet quote, if you choose this life, then build your life in accordance with that necessity. If this is a necessity that you're an artist, then you have to build your life around that and find a way to sustain that kind of a life. So I think it's just priorities. I've been in this for a while where I've seen people drop out of it and go into real estate, and they just sort of made that, not that that's a bad thing, but they made that decision that, they wanted a different life and wanted more stability and so I think you're constantly weighing that, as you kind of progress in this life, in this business.